It's now okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just, okay. I will share my.
Shall I stop sharing? All right.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we will discuss about religion, secularism, and democracy, the experience of Turkey and Indonesia. Our guest lecturer will be Professor Onder Kural. He's from Ibnu Khaldun University. But before that, Abe, let me inform you first about Indonesia, so you have a little bit imagination before coming here, right, Abe? Okay.
Okay.
Ini ya, saya kira. This is Indonesia, Abe. Yeah, this is where we live in Yogyakarta. Is Java. It's close to Jakarta. It's 1 hour flight from Jakarta. Okay. This is Sumatera, Kalimantan. So we have this huge island, but our island is in this place. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And because we are talking about democracy and secularism, you can have also sense what kind of a government in Indonesia. So I will let you know about Indonesia. Indonesia as a pluralistic and Pancasila state. So usually for many Westerners, for many Western observers, Indonesia is not what the first comes to mind when they think about the Muslim world, because maybe I think they almost have no complete understanding about Muslim in Indonesia. So this is why most of them will not consider first when they're talking about Muslim world. The average Westerner may be perhaps more familiar with its ancient Hindu. We have Hindus, we have Buddhists, we have also temples. This is too small. Okay. The average Westerner is perhaps more familiar with ancient Hindu Buddhist temples. When you visit here, I will accompany you to this temple, Abe. And
Actually, I want to come. I want to come, by the way, Shafa.
Sure, welcome.
We should organize something. Go ahead. I'm listening. Yeah.
Okay, and Grace Salina's art, then with the fact that Indonesia, the 4th most populous nation in the world, we are the 4th most populous nation. Maybe right now is the 3rd, I think. It's also the world's largest majority Muslim country. We are the world's largest Muslim majority country. So some 90% of this nation, so around 220 or 120 to 230 million people officially profess Islam. Okay, so on this ground alone, you can see that what Indonesian Muslims think and should do will be a matter of general interest. That's because we are majority. Okay, so again, Indonesia as a pluralistic state, plurality also is very texture of Indonesia. So in terms of religion in Indonesia, many researchers usually maintain that there is a demographic paradox. This is also you should understand. So despite a huge Muslim majority population, Indonesia is constitutionally not an Islamic state. But on the other hand, it is not secular either, Abi. It is not Islamic state, but not a secular either. So maybe this surprise you. Okay. Constitutionally, it is a unitary state which embodies and simplifies a philosophy of Pancasila. It's called 5 principles. So therefore, Muslim acceptance of Pancasila is no doubt of the most important Indonesian Islamic root of pluralism. So not Islamic state and not secular, we are Pancasila state. Okay, Abe? This is a philosophy. What are these Pancasila? What is that? 5 principles. One is belief in the one supreme God. And the second one is a just and civilized humanity. The third one is the unity in Indonesia. And the fourth is democracy led by wisdom of anonymity arising from deliberation among representatives of the people. And the last one is social justice for the whole people of Indonesia. This is symbol. This is the symbol of Pancasila. Okay? So maybe you remember when we were in the United States, there you know a pluribus unum, right? You know that. So Bhinneka Tunggal Ika actually also almost the same like a pluribus unum. So unity in diversity. Here Indonesia, here a pluribus unum. Unity in diversity. Okay? And Pancasila, because talking about Pancasila, even though I said that we are not secular either, but Pancasila may be as secular and as equality definition of monotheism. So Pancasila can be viewed as secular, but as well as an equality definition of monotheism. Why? Because religion is defined as an ethic and separated from the state. This is the foundation made it possible to overcome the tension between Islam at that time and a secular national state in Indonesia, and to demonstrate the successful pattern for harmonious unity of cultural, ethnically, and religiously differing communities. So this is the role of Pancasila, Abe. This is our first president. The name is Soekarno. When we say about the first principle about monotheism, he said like this: it is the principle of belief in God. It means that all Indonesians believe in God in the sense that the Christian believes in God in harmony with the teaching of the Jesus Christ. The Muslim in line with the teaching of Muhammad. The Buddhists practice their religion as prescribed in the Holy Scripture. But according to him, we all together believe in God. So the Indonesian state is a state where every believer can worship God according to his own choice of religion. The Indonesian people believe in God in a refined manner that is without egoism of any one religion. I think this is important, Abe. Okay? Usually, people talk about dhimmi when we are talking about a minority, Muslim minority, or minority within Islamic country. So Pancasila is very different with the traditional Islamic dhimmi principle. You know, dhimmi may be defined as a person with an accountability and inviolability, granted human rights and constitutional rights. But in the classical Islamic jurisprudence, the term dhimma means accountability and inviolability, which is usually termed personhood in modern legal discourse. So dhimma or dhimmi also commonly understood as protection for treaty and peace, because it is a treaty that put non-Muslims under the protection of Muslims. So it is the concept of the right of minority, but used to be misunderstood as second citizen. Okay, this is dhimmi. So what about Pancasila? this Pancasila definition that I mentioned before by our first president is a clear-cut deviation from traditional Islamic dhimmi principle. Pancasila put Muslims, Christians, Hindus, and Buddhists on equal level. That is not only a revolution in Islamic thinking, but for me it is also a translation of mystical ideas of the great Sufi Ibn Arabi, you know, that's my dissertation, into a political program. So Sufi Islam tolerance and its rejection of any dogmatism becomes a basis for political reality in Indonesia. So Pancasila and the traditional principle dhimmi in Indonesia, non-Muslim are not dhimmi, but citizens of equal standing. It offers a model for an equal definition of Islam and Christianity, which is then expanded also to Buddhism, Hinduism, and Confucianism, religion which are not mentioned in Islamic revelation. So this is Pancasila. Okay. And that's why I think you know Bassam Tibi Abe. He mentioned that Indonesia be as a center of Islamic civilization. So in his article, he opened that since the Arab core countries of Islamic civilization have neither such a cultural, ethnical, and religious foundation for inner peace, nor, despite oil-based prosperity, of course, can neither offer an economical successful development model. So for Bassam, he said, the question comes up whether it is Southeast Asia, that is Indonesia, that will become the center of Islamic civilization while moving into 21st century because of its model capability. So you have and also fulfill his imagination or his hope. So right now, students, let me introduce you to our professor today. His name is Onder Kuchikural. It's difficult to spell, jadi agak susah diucapkan karena ondernya itu bukan onder gitu, tidak ya. Jadi ada bahasa khusus tertentu di dalam tradisi Turkish. You may say yourself to the student, Abe, how to spell your name, Onder Kuchikural, right? Yeah, because for me it is easy to pronounce. Okay, so he is an associate professor at Alien of Civilization Institute. I think I visited this institute, right, Abe? Ya, saya pernah pergi ke tempat dia di Institute of Alien Civilization, Ibnu Khaldun University, Istanbul, Turkiye. Received his PhD in Sabancı University, itu universitas yang sangat besar, sangat terkenal, Sabancı University, dan indah sekali universitas. It's very beautiful university, right, Abe? In a political science program. He was also visiting researcher at the Prince Al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim Christian Understanding at Georgetown University, Washington, D.C. in 2011 until 2012. I met him. Jadi di sana itu saya ketemu dia. Kita sama-sama di Georgetown University. Dia visiting researcher, saya visiting professor itu. Jadi kenapa saya kenal dia? Oh, ini orang ini pintar sekali, cerdas sekali. Jadi nanti Anda bisa bertanya segala macam. You know everything. So I used to call you my intellectual mate, right? Ini teman intelektual saya ini. Okay. He is one of the co-author of bukunya banyak, ya. Lifestyle Choice of the Elderly from the Elderly Perspective and that of their relatives. Lalu ada Religiosity in Turkey and Spirit Seeking in Turkey. Itu sudah publish, tidak publish 2020. Currently, he is focusing on two research projects. Dia punya dua project research. Ya, one is TÜBİTAK sponsor project on non-religion in Turkey, and the other is develop argumentative future in a divided world. Itu is interesting research, Abe. His research interests include argumentation and reasoning, religiosity, discourse analysis, ecology, and also gender studies. He offers graduate level courses at Alien of Civilization Institute on discourse analysis and argumentation, political sociology, ecology, and research methods. So let's give applause to our professor Onder Puchukura, and the time is yours, Abe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now I will share my screen. Thank you very much, Shafa. It has been a great introduction for me, and I never forget our very deep conversations in US, in DC, with Shafa. Her dissertation on Ibn Arabi and Meister Eckhart was fascinating. I remember talking with her like 2 hours, and I was not able to understand the passage of time. Yani it's one of the most delightful conversations I have done in my life with Shafa. And
Abek, could you please speak a little bit slowly?
Slowly, okay.
Yeah, a little bit slowly, so students will understand better. Thank you.
Okay, I can. So that's why I couldn't reject. I couldn't say no to Shafa when she invited me for this talk. And this is a very important topic: religion, secularism, and democracy. Can you follow me, by the way?
Yeah, it's okay. No, I just what is that? See the screen. Okay. No, is your screen or where is not? Your screen is not in my.
So can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can see. Yang bisa lihat nggak? But let me see. What should I do with this? Multiple participant can, one participant can share. Nah, ini saja berarti. Atau?
Sorry, what did one participant said?
No, I mean in the LCD, I see you, but why in that itu tidak berubah? Kenapa ya?
Sorry, I stopped sharing. Sorry, I will try sharing again. Guys, can you make this to, if you see, can you make this to the screen? If you can share, and if you can see my screen.
Yeah, this is not yours. It is my problem, I think.
Come.
Kenapa nggak bisa muncul di situ ya? Ada yang tahu nggak? Okay, just a moment, Abe.
Tamam, okay. So I believe the others can see my screen. Junaidi, can you see my screen?
That's what I would like to do because I still see my screen there. So I have to close OC. I see and show. Okay, and then okay, so I just close this one. So then, okay, that's it. So you there.
So everything is fine now, huh? You are fixed.
Okay.
Tamam.
Thank you, Abe.
Tamam. Also, I continue. Okay, I was just saying it was my pleasure to accept your invitation to give this talk to your students. And this is, as you can imagine, this is one of the most sophisticated, most complex issues in modern political theory, modern political science. And I had hard time to actually prepare this presentation. Sorry?
Okay, Abe. They need me to translate. So you speak one screen and then I translate it. Is it okay?
Sorry, what will you do?
No, I mean you speak screen and then stop and then I translate into Indonesian language so that the student understand more. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Okay, we will do it. But how much time we have, Shafa?
It is okay. We have until 2 hours with question and answer. So it is okay.
Tamam, okay, tamam. Tamam, I will
Tamam.
speak slowly and I will wait for your translation. Okay.
Yes.
So, okay. So I was just telling the issue is very difficult and it's very complex. It's very hard to actually frame it. So I come up with this question. Let me read my question. Today I will be tackling with how can we accommodate religion in state in a pluralist society? In other words, in regulating public affairs like kind of education, marriage, holidays, burial ceremonies, everything. Can you give voice to religious authorities? If you do so, how can you make sure that as a state you can remain equidistant to all comprehensive worldviews? That is to say, religions or similar philosophies that exist in the public sphere. And this will be my overarching question today. Yes, you can translate, Shafa.
Oke, oke, Abe. Saya kira dia bertanya, ada pertanyaan di sini yang saya kira ini pertanyaan ini adalah pertanyaan complicated ya, sangat penting untuk dijawab di situ. How can we accommodate religion in state in a pluralistic society? Jadi bagaimana kita mengakomodasi agama yang itu, bagaimana mengakomodasi agama ke dalam negara ya. Tetapi negara itu like you spin to a different, please update it so we can provide better transcription. Oh, this is good. How can we jadi bagaimana kita bisa mengakomodasi agama di dalam ke satu negara, di dalam negara yang masyarakatnya adalah pluralistik. Jadi misalnya begini, di dalam regulasi mengatur persoalan-persoalan publik, ya misalnya mengatur persoalan pendidikan, mengatur persoalan pernikahan, mengatur persoalan libur, itu kan biasanya itu diatur oleh negara, mengatur persoalan pemakaman dan lain-lain di situ. Bisa nggak kita memberikan suara, ini loh ajaran agama kami ke dalam negara? Nah, itu pertanyaan dia. Kalau bisa, misalnya, bisa nggak kita memastikan bahwa di situ that is to say region also that is in, bisa nggak kita memastikan bahwa semua perspektif kita itu, semua pandangan dari sudut agama itu memang ada di sana, diakomodasi gitulah bahasa mudah. Nah, itu pertanyaan beliau ya. Oke, go ahead Abe.
So this also includes not only religions, but also non-religion. As you said in my CV, when you're describing it, I am now doing a project on non-religion, the ones who do not believe in God, or the ones who are away from God, like agnostic, deists, all those other categories. Now it's increasing, especially in the Western world and also in Turkey. So how also we should include those voices? Was in your pansecular state discourse, the unity was in God. So what will happen, for instance, if the person doesn't believe in God? How we will also include this kind of voices in a pluralist society? This will be my gist of the discussion today. Go ahead, Hocam.
Oke. Kalau tadi kita berbicara bagaimana agama, di dalam penelitian dia itu kan juga non-religion. Jadi bagaimana juga orang yang tidak beragama atau masalah-masalah dari orang-orang yang bukan beragama itu juga bisa diperhatikan atau bisa masuk di dalam diskursus, masuk dalam keputusan-keputusan yang itu dibuat oleh negara, diregulasi dalam negara. Jadi artinya pas semua semua masyarakat yang plural, apakah itu walaupun kita mungkin nggak ada yang mengaku tidak beragama ya, tetapi tekanan dia adalah bagaimana semua masyarakat plural itu semuanya terakomodasi oleh negara di dalam persoalan-persoalan publik. Okay?
Yes. So today my outline is this. I will first make a very brief theoretical overview, and then I will talk about Turkish experience of secularism, and thirdly, I will start discussing more deeply theoretical and philosophical considerations. And I will also discuss secularism and democracy. Can they really coexist? And I will go over some suggestions in the literature. And then I'll do a discussion and conclusion. Yes.
Oke, saya kira ini ringkasannya nanti akan dibahas ya, bagaimana teorinya, bagaimana pengalaman sekularisme di Turki, ya, bagaimana pertimbangan-pertimbangan teoritis dan filosofisnya, lalu dia bicara bagaimana mengenai sekularisme dan demokrasi, apakah bisa berdampingan antara sekularisme dengan demokrasi? Bisa nggak hidup berdampingan? Mungkin di situ ada, nanti ada diskusi lalu saya kira kesimpulan. Thanks, Abe.
So let's start with this small, brief theoretical overview. Consider secularism as an indispensable part of political modernization. And today we will discuss about secularism, and we should take it in the scope of this political modernization project that happened all over the world. When we say political modernization, what we mean by is the transition from empire to modern states, like ancient regimes going into the modern state formation. Especially it happened late 19th century and 20th century, early 20th century, and for some countries it is later. And secularism was adopted in that process to limit the influence of religious institutions in lawmaking. So when I say lawmaking, I'm talking about, as Said Arjaman said in his book 2008 and earlier even said, there are two traditions actually about lawmaking. One is about law. One is lawmaking, and the other one is law finding. The real transition actually happened here in the empire, or in the ancient, let's say, or pre-modern societies. The states or the rulers was finding laws, okay? But in the modern states, we are talking about lawmaking. Yani the people are responsible to make the laws that govern themselves. So this is the basic transition that happened, and that's why actually we are talking about a kind of tension with religions in the political sphere.
Okay.
Yes, Hocam.
Oke, secara teoritis di sini dia bilang begini, sekularisme itu menjadi satu bagian yang tidak harus ada, tidak itu akan terjadi di dalam modernisasi politik. Kata dia begitu. Itu artinya apa? Dengan perubahan dari satu, dulu itu kan pemerintahnya kan empire ya, kekuasaannya itu kan misalnya apa-apa di situ, lalu berubah menjadi negara modern di situ sampai misalnya akhir abad ke-19 sampai abad ke-20. Nah, ketika itu, ini kan pengalaman Turki juga ya nanti, itu sekularisme itu diadopsi. Kenapa mereka mengambil sekularisme? Itu diadopsi untuk apa? Untuk membatasi pengaruh agama di dalam lawmaking. Lawmaking itu artinya apa? Di sini ada dua yang harus dipahami. Lawmaking itu artinya adalah bagaimana ketika Anda mau membuat satu hukum di situ, ini sekularisme itu diambil untuk membatasi itu. Nah, lawmaking di sini dia bilang refer to deliberate, yaitu apa? Itu menunjuk kepada deliberate institutional process, yaitu proses yang itu memang disengaja secara institusional untuk apa? Creating new laws. Ketika dia mau menciptakan hukum yang baru. Nah, ini kan biasanya kalau kita di sini DPR, itu bikin undang-undang baru. Nah, itu namanya lawmaking. Sementara law finding itu adalah proses ya di situ untuk menemukan atau menginterpretasikan ulang hukum-hukum yang sudah ada. Ya, di sini biasanya kata dia dilakukan oleh para sarjana, para ahli atau para ahli hukum, khususnya di mana hukum itu dipercaya itu sudah ada sebelum adanya manusia. Jadi misalnya dulu belum pernah ada hukum, nah kita discover. Dulu pernah ada hukum misalnya, tapi kita menemukan lagi atau mungkin menginterpretasikan ulang hukum-hukum yang sudah ada. Nah, itu namanya law finding. Jadi menemukan ulang, discovering gitu ya, menemukan ulang. Law making itu bikin yang baru. Kalau yang ini menemukan yang sudah pernah ada. Oke? Oke, Abe.
Yes. So, if we look at different kinds of secularism, so you can imagine this has been a very tenuous transition. Sovereignty belongs to God before, and the king or the sultan was the, the ruler, and he was ruling in the name of God, divine right of the king. Let's say it was the case before, and with the overthrown of the king, and now the people is appointed, or they sit in the how do you say, this position to make the laws. This has been a big transition, and it has been in three ways. On one way, this is what Nikki Kedir said, three kinds of secularism happened in history. One is disestablishment or elimination of religion altogether, and the cases are Albania and Russia, you can think. And the separation is where the religion and state is separated. It's more like Anglo-Saxon world. England and United States can be good examples. And the third, control. Yani the state controls the religion. It does not disestablish it. It does not eliminate it. There is also no separation, but actually the state has a role to fiercely control the content of religion. Yani it prescribes a certain kind of religion valid in the society. So this is the control account. Now I will talk how Turkish experience conforms this control account. Yes, Hocam, go ahead.
Oke, jadi kata beliau, teoritis ada tiga macam model atau tipe sekularisme. Itu. Yang pertama adalah apa? Disestablishment atau elimination of religion. Jadi yang pertama adalah semua pokoknya agama itu dihilangkan sama sekali. Ya, dihilangkan. Contohnya misalnya Albania dan juga atau Rusia. Nah, contoh yang kedua adalah separation. Di situ pemisahan antara agama dengan negara. Nah, ini kan kita bisa lihat misalnya Amerika kan begitu ya. Contohnya dunia Anglo-Saxon, khususnya misalnya Inggris sana dan juga Amerika. Nah, yang ketiga yang nanti dia akan jelaskan itu adalah bagaimana agama itu dikontrol. Ya, itu sekularismenya itu kontrol. Ini contohnya adalah Turki dan Prancis yang nanti dia akan bahas khususnya pengalaman di Turki yang tinggal. Oke, Abe.
So now I will go over what happened in Turkish history, the historical background of this control account. Why it's not elimination? Because some people would think actually Atatürk eliminated Islam in Turkey. Actually, it's not the case. It's more of a control. So now I will give you some crucial events, crucial points in history that showcase this control account. Of course, before the proclamation of Turkish Republic, we are talking about some secularization efforts or modernization efforts before the Republic, before 1923, when Turkish Republic was first established. So Tanzimat reforms, I will not get into details about these, but the first constitutional period happened in 1876. They actually, the major thing was to somehow guarantee equal rights of all citizens, regardless of religion, during the end of the Ottoman Empire. So especially the Young Turk Revolution in 1908 is also another instance. Don't translate this everything here, Shafa. Go ahead. Just that I just mentioned that there are just earlier attempts before the Republic. I just wanted to underline this. That's why I show this slide. Go ahead.
Oke. Ini dia memberi contoh mengenai Turki, mengenai tipe ketiga, mengenai sekularisme tadi, yaitu bagaimana kontrol negara terhadap agama. Ini terjadi ketika itu sebetulnya sebelum kemerdekaan. Ya, Turki mempunyai kemerdekaan itu 1923. Nah, sebelum itu ketika masa pemerintahan Ottoman atau Ottoman Empire, di situ ada namanya gerakan Tanzimat ya di situ. Nah, apa yang diumumkan atau dideklarasikan oleh Tanzimat adalah bagaimana mereka punya garansi ada persamaan hak untuk semua. Garansi equal right to all citizens. Jadi nggak peduli dia agamanya apa ya di situ, tapi yang penting mereka semua punya hak yang sama. Nah, di situ. Nah, ini menurut dia itu justru weakening the Islamic character of legal system, itu memperlemah ciri khas Islam yang ada di dalam sistem hukum. Karena memang di situ kan equal right, sama saja. Pokoknya kamu agama berapa atau tidak, agamanya apapun, pokoknya kamu punya hak yang sama. Itu. Oke, Abe.
So, I can talk more in detail about the Atatürk's era, yani early Republican era, where actually it started slowly. It was first embracing Islam, and then at the end of his reign, let's say, or his rule, somehow the secularism, the laicite, especially a very specific form, this control account emerged. So first, they in 1922, when they were making transition from Ottoman Empire to Turkish state, they abolished the sultanate first, and then second, 23 declared the Turkey as a republic, and then third, in 24, after the declaration of the republic, they abolished the caliphate in 24. Go ahead, Hocam.
Oke. Pengalaman Turki misalnya mengenai sekularisme di situ, ya, ketika begitu mereka merdeka 1923, itu presidennya itu Kemal Atatürk ketika itu, ya, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk itu dia mengumumkan ada radical secularization project, ya. Jadi diumumkan di situ ada proyek sekularisasi radikal. Apa yang dilakukan? Abolition of sultanat. Jadi dulu kan ada sultan-sultanat itu dihabisin semua, hilangin semua. Lalu yang kedua, proclamation of republic. Jadi Turki pokoknya saya memproklamirkan diri sebagai negara republik. Karena tadinya kan kesultanan, Sultan Ottoman Empire kesultanan itu dihapus, lalu diganti menjadi republik. Lalu apa? Abolition of khalifah. Khalifah-khalifah yang ada juga dihapus. Nggak ada lagi sistem kehalifahan. Jadi kalau sekarang misalnya ada gerakan kembali mau menjadi khalifah lagi, di Turki sudah dihapus sudah lama oleh Kemal Atatürk. Oke, Abe.
Yeah, so the first one was more in the legal sphere, but later we also see in other social and social and cultural sphere a lot of new reforms. One is first they close the religious courts and institutions, and then instead they established a Ministry of Religious Affairs. Sorry, they Presidency of Religious Affairs they established instead of the Sharia and Efkaf vekaleti. So this is one very important control account. Let's say the Atatürk established two directorates. One is armed forces, the other one is religious affairs. So Atatürk wanted these two very important forces to be attached to himself. Like above the ministries, he has these armed forces and religious authority. So he established this Diyanet İşleri, yani Presidency of or Directorate of Religious Affairs. So he also unified education, and he removed all the religious institutions. It's called Tevhid-i Tedrisat. He shut down all the madrasas, and then they opened the Ministry of Education, and all the education is assembled under this institution, the ministry. And as it said, Sufi orders and tekkes was outlawed during 1925. They closed all the dervish lodges and all the spiritual institutions at the time. Go ahead, Hocam.
Oke, jadi di samping yang tadi, pengalaman sekularisasi Turki itu adalah juga misalnya penutupan pengadilan-pengadilan dan institusi-institusi agama. Itu ditutup zamannya Kemal Atatürk itu. Jadi departemen agama lah kalau kita punya sekarang di situ, atau yayasan-yayasan yang untuk kesalehan itu ditutup, ya, diganti dengan apa? Diyanet, Presidency of Religious Affairs. Jadi diganti dengan ada situ pusat khusus untuk persoalan-persoalan agamaan, tetapi itu dikontrol oleh negara, under state control di situ. Nah, semua madrasah, semua sekolah-sekolah yang berbasis agama ditutup. Itu zamannya Kemal Atatürk. Ya, itu contoh pengalaman sekularismenya. Lalu yang selanjutnya, unification of semua persoalan-persoalan yang sifatnya pendidikan, Kita ini kan ada departemen education itu kan ada pendidikan nasional, ada Kementerian Agama ya di situ. Nah ini semua persoalan pendidikan itu ada di satu pintu, yaitu unification of education tadi di situ. Semua institusi-institusi agama tetapi itu ada di bawah kontrol pemerintah. Dan removing religious curricula, nggak ada kurikulum agama. Nah, itu contoh sekularismenya. Lalu yang terakhir di sini itu kan banyak sekali tarekat-tarekat sufi. Ya, di situ ada tempat-tempat TK itu tempat-tempat di mana para sufi tinggal di situ. Itu semua dilarang, nggak boleh. Ya, semua tempat-tempat bahkan kuburannya itu mereka dibikin hukum, pokoknya ditutup itu semua tempat-tempat derwis itu. Nah, disitulah menjadi tanda cultural and spiritual secularization, sekularisasi budaya dan sekularisasi spiritual. Nah, itu contoh sekularisme yang terjadi di Turki. Oke, Abe.
So, as I said, it's also in the cultural realm. So don't translate all this in detail, by the way. I'm just going through it. So, in the social and cultural realm, Atatürk outlawed the religious hat, for instance. He didn't abolish the veil from the women, but just symbolically, man is not allowed to wear any religious, let's say, hats, but instead they make this hat law. They want the above hat. You see, fötr şapka instead of the fez, for instance. That kind of regulations they arranged. And they established civil code, especially in family law. They outlawed the Sharia law. All this, how do you say, courts was shut down, and they opened this civil code. They also removed Islam from the constitution in 1928. Actually, in the second constitution, sorry. In 1924, Islam was the state religion, but in 28, after some time passed, they removed it from the religion of the state clause. So, but more importantly, Erdogan, Atatürk at the same time ordered Elmalı Hamdi Yazır write a Quran, write a tefsir actually, Quran tefsir, in 1932. So this is where actually the control account become very apparent. And he doesn't outlaw it like in Albania. They demolished all the mosques, everything. But in Turkey, actually, Atatürk himself wanted a certain interpretation of religion to be widespread in the society. This is extremely important. And then a year before he passed away, they accepted the principle of secularism, laiklik, laicite, in the constitution, and it becomes one of the 6 founding principles of the founding party in Turkey, laicite, in 1937. And very after he passed away in 1949, they first established the Ankara University Divinity School. And first time in higher education, the state started to give training, let's say, education in religion. So, but this happened in 1949. But all these, especially the Quran translation or the establishment of divinity school, they are all actually showing us how state actually want to have a say in the religious affairs, beyond also religious directorate, affairs of religious directorate. Go ahead, Shafa.
Okay. Bahkan mungkin buat Anda lucu ya, jadi pakaian pun itu diatur. Jadi Anda nggak boleh pakai topi. Jadi kalau kita bahasa kita mungkin kuplo ya, itu simbol kuplo ini kan simbol topinya agama, gitu. Karena untuk sholat itu nggak boleh dipakai in public. Ini kan public, urusannya adalah public expression ya. Jadi ekspresi keagamaan yang itu sifatnya public itu nggak boleh. Jadi pakai kuplo, misalnya Anda ke sekolah, ini kan public school misalnya, Anda kok pakai kuplo orento gitu ya, nggak boleh. Pakai sarung itu kan simbol agama, nggak boleh di situ ya. Jadi yang dipakai harus yang itu lebih hal-hal sifatnya umum. Kalau itu public. Nah maka sebenarnya tujuannya adalah reshaping public religious expression. Jadi ekspresi di publik itu ya harus publik, harus umum di situ. Lalu Atatürk juga mengambil apa namanya Swiss Civil Code di situ dipakai ya di situ untuk mengganti, karena dulunya adalah apa namanya hukum-hukum Islam, itu diadopsi dari hukum Swiss di situ. Lalu di dalam konstitusi Islam dihilangkan di situ. Di dalam konstitusinya, di dalam hukum di situ nggak ada Islam. Sehingga misalnya klausul religion of the state is Islam, jadi agama negara ini adalah agama Islam, itu dihilangkan ya oleh Atatürk. Lalu dia juga mengadopsi apa namanya prinsip sekularisme. Karena tadi agama sudah diganti, dihilangkan, di situ diganti, diadopsi, sistemnya adalah sistem sekularisme atau disebut dengan Kemalis ideologi. Lalu, tetapi di sini yang juga, that this is actually my question before you continue. This all public religious expression is prohibited, but why it is allowed to build or to establish divinity school?
Can you ask it again? Why again?
Yeah, I think because all related to religion, even the religion, what is in the constitution, the clausule, the religion of the state is Islam was removed from the constitution, right?
Yeah.
But why it is allowed that you can build divinity school, you establish divinity school in Ankara University?
This is exactly why, as Nikki Keddie said, it is not disestablishment, but control account. You know, I talked about there were three kinds of secularism. Turkey actually does not disestablish it, but they try to control it by building these institutions like faculty or a directorate of religious affairs. So they don't totally eliminate religion, but they only allow certain kind of religious interpretation, and they want to take it from the hands of the, let's say, Sufi lodges or other, how do you say, the societal, let's say, religious groups. They outlawed all of them, but instead they said, okay, we will teach Islam. So they opened this faculty, the divinity school in Ankara University, because there's a need in the society, and Atatürk didn't go that far, but instead he wanted to, how do you say, establish an Islam in line with the Republican ideology. Did you understand that Atatürk University Divinity School is established to promote that kind of Islam? Did you understand? So it directly shows how the control account, and they try to control religion actually in the Republican era. Go ahead, Hocam. Oke, jadi walaupun di sini boleh ya toh di Ankara University itu dibangun di school ya, di situ ada fakultas teologi lah bahasa kita itu, tetapi itu sebetulnya yang diinginkan oleh Turki secara umum adalah bagaimana mereka bisa mengontrol semua kegiatan-kegiatan keagamaan itu, karena kalau tidak kan itu mereka akan liar gitu ya. Jadi sebetulnya dia mau fokus itu dikontrol. Boleh kalau memberikan ini, tetapi saya mengontrolmu gitu ya, bahasa mudanya gitu. Oke, Abe. So, and the state in Atatürk's vision should be kind of equidistant to all religions, tamam? And Islam should not have any priority. That's why the clause, the state's religion is Islam is abundant. Yani they drop this clause. Oke. Jadi sebetulnya maunya adalah bukan hanya Islam saja, tetapi semua itu punya hak yang sama. Makanya tadi di dalam institusi itu kata-kata Islam itu dihapus. Ya, mungkin kayak kita dulu di Pancasila dulu kan ada 9 kata yang dihapus, kewajiban untuk melaksanakan. Itu kan hanya fokus kepada Islam. Harus biar universal. Itu dihapus. Itu juga sama. Jadi bukan kok antipati terhadap agama, tidak, tetapi supaya ini bisa merata semuanya lah, itu kan hanya nama Islam saja enggak, itu harus dihapus, diganti kita lebih plural begitu ya, lebih terbuka. Oke, Abe. Yeah. So okay, what's happening here? They made all these institutional reforms. So why are they after these reforms? What kind of state they were imagining? This is an important point actually. So I will start talking about this theoretical and philosophical considerations. This was just an overview of some historical background. So philosophically or legally wise, let's say, you need to understand the difference between positive law view versus natural law view. According to positive law view, the laws are made. I just talked about Said Arjoman's law making versus law finding. So in the natural law view, you as a human beings, we cannot make laws, but we should discover them. We should find them somewhere. Either it can be from nature or from the religious texts. So the humans are not capable of making laws, but we should take them from where they already reside. There's perfect law in nature, for instance. If you look at the Greek tradition, for instance, our job is just to excavate these laws from the nature. But if it is religion, so our job is just to understand what God's voice. This is the thing. But in the positive law view, actually, there is no essence of law. It's crucial to understand. The humans should make the laws with deliberations in the parliament. And the idea is here, the idea is, by the way, this is also written in the Turkish parliament Meclis wall, that sovereignty belongs to people. So this sovereignty shifted from the king, sultans to people. This is the exact issue you need to understand. And the people are there in the parliament, in the legislation, to make the laws, actually. So this is the exact shift, and we should. So it's not anymore persons that rules, but institutions start to rule the society, the country. So this is extremely important. So now I will talk a little bit about democracy, and then I will move on to what complications. By the way, the things are very complex. Don't expect me to say in this presentation to say, they should religion should be allowed, or religion should not be allowed. This issue is not that easy. So the issue is very, very complex. From now on, I will try to show how the issue is very complex when it comes to democratic ideals. Yes, Hocam. I will also talk about democratic ideals after you translated the first part. Go ahead, Hocam.
Okay, I think just what is that little bit simple. So because of the saya kira saya akan secara singkat saja. Jadi mereka atau Kemal Atatürk itu, Turki itu ingin melakukan institutional reform, ya, pembaharuan institusi, sehingga mereka akan membuat what kind of state yang akan mereka bikin, negara yang macam apa yang akan mereka buat itu di situ, ya. Jadi misalnya ada di situ kepercayaan itu berpindah, misalnya yang tadinya kepercayaannya kepada king atau kepada Tuhan. Nah, ini demokrasi itu adalah orang di situ. Lalu ketika membuat keputusan hukum misalnya, itu bukan orangnya tapi institusinya di situ, ya. Di situ institution become important di situ. Sehingga saya kira di sini nanti ketika dia nanti berbicara mengenai demokrasi, itu tiga hal itu tadi, positive law, jadi hukum-hukum yang buat itu positive law itu, lalu parlemen di situ, lalu sovereignty kepercayaannya juga berpindah dari bukan ke king atau bukan di right of the king, karena dulu kan namanya king, raja itu kan seperti seolah-olah punya hak Tuhan gitu, ya, mewakili Tuhan. Nah, itu pindah, tidak lagi kekuasaan di sana, tetapi kekuasaan ada pada orang, pada people. Nah, ketika kita berbicara mengenai demokrasi, itu penting, ya, positive law, sistem parlemen di situ, parlemen dan juga people itu menjadi sesuatu yang prinsip yang harus diperhatikan, termasuk di situ institusi itu menjadi penting. Jadi bukan orang per personnya, tetapi institusinya. Oke, Abe.
So, okay, all are done actually to conform with the ideas of democracy. You should keep this in mind. Okay, what does democracy mean here? And don't think that it's just like voting or it's just rule of people. Actually, democracy means you should ensure three basic principles in ruling. And the first principle is accountability, the second is participation, and third is transparency. And if you can enact these three principles, you have democracy in a society. But these are, of course, ideals. Şimdi accountability means actually rule of law. And you will understand how secularism is very much related with these three things. Şimdi accountability means rule of law. Mesela if you actually, the minute you make laws in a society, it means you will curb individuals' freedoms. So if you want to curb freedoms, you need to be accountable. Tamam? You need to give reasons that everyone can accept. Tamam? For instance, if you are talking about gay marriage, or if you ban alcohol in society, tamam, you cannot simply say because it's God said so, but you should show the reasons why işte, mesela driving with alcohol should be forbidden. So that it has problems in health, for instance. So accountability means the rulers should give reasons to its citizens so that they can all accept. And they also rule under the law. Not they make laws as sultans or the kings were doing, but they are also bound with the same laws. And when they rule, they should be showing that actually they are also bound with the same laws. The second one is participation. It's representation. If you say the sovereignty belongs to people, so you should somehow ensure participation. It's done through voting. It also incorporates protests. So somehow more radical democratic, let's say, ways into ruling. So this is very important. And somehow you should allow people to have say in the rule making. And the third one is transparency. Actually, everything should be transparent to people. This is the other ideal of democracy. So it is ensured by separation of powers, judicial oversight. Think of all these doctrines of separation of power, that there is legislation, there is judiciary, and all these institutions make sure that transparency is achieved in a society. Go ahead, Hocam.
Oke, jadi karena kita berbicara mengenai demokrasi, di situ ada tiga hal yang ideal yang harus dipenuhi ya. Pertama adalah accountability. Jadi misalnya di situ kita berbicara rule of law, ada tata aturan hukum. Jadi misalnya begini, Anda mau bilang saya mau kebebasan, gitu. Nah di situ harus ada alasan. Kenapa kok harus ada kebebasan di situ? Misalnya ada gay marriage, kan bebas di situ, tapi harus ada alasan why. Yang itu alasannya itu bisa diterima oleh semua orang. Kenapa harus begini? Karena harus begini, karena begini. Nah, jadi ada, makanya di sini bahasanya rule of law. Ya, itu satu. Yang kedua adalah participation. Jadi kalau mau bicara demokrasi, jelas di situ ada partisipasi. Jadi Anda juga ikut berpartisipasi. Jadi kalau Anda membengok demokrasi tapi nggak berpartisipasi di dalam voting, itu ya saya kira nggak demokrasi namanya. Lalu yang ketiga, transparansi. Nah, di dalam demokrasi itu harus ada transparansi. Semua harus transparan di situ. Hanya jelas di situ ada separation of power. Jadi kekuasaan itu ya memang secara jelas di situ tidak satu orang saja, tetapi ada pemisahan kekuasaan di situ tuh jelas, transparan di situ misalnya. Lalu jelas nanti ada auditnya juga jelas, usaha-usaha untuk audit ini memang benar atau tidak gitu. Jadi semuanya yang jelas, syaratnya tadi accountability, participation, transparansi itu secara ideal di dalam dunia demokrasi, negara demokrasi harus ada. Oke, Abe.
And if you look at these, by the way, Atatürk might have shared these ideals, but we wouldn't accept that Atatürk would conform these ideals. During his time, there was one party rule. This is important. So these principles were not actually there, but he tried to, and he accepted these ideals, but he enforced these things to make sure that the different voices can be heard in the Ottoman society, and sorry, in the new Turkey, new society. But having said that, I should say second thing, the things may look very plain here, very how do you say, positive in general. But when you start enacting those, it's not that easily translated in the sociological realities of the societies. Later we will also start criticizing these things, and maybe not the ideals, but the way they are being implemented. Yes, Hocam.
Oke, tapi tadi ide-ide yang tadi dikemukakan itu mungkin itu sangat positif, bagus ya, tetapi kan tidak mudah direalisasikan di dalam masyarakat. Itu saya kira persoalannya. Yang dilakukan, tapi kan tidak lalu semua yang dilakukan oleh Kemal Atatürk itu persis sama seperti yang diidealkan tadi. Karena tadi sekali lagi tidak mudah merealisasikan di dalam masyarakat. Jadi Kemal Atatürk setuju dengan ide-ide ini, dia mempromosikan ide-ide ini, tetapi secara realitas tidak mudah untuk melahirkannya. Oke, Abe.
So let's talk more about the, how do you say, more the ideals of liberal democracy. Tamam mı? Why? İşte what is the thing this regime or these institutions are after? Tamam mı? It's important to better understand. To ensure pluralism in a society, following Rawls and Habermas, we need to underline that the parliaments where they make laws or legislation, let's say legislative body, which is called parliament, it should be representative of all voices. Tamam mı? Think of this way. And it's not just işte Buddhists, Catholics, or Muslims, but also non-religious people, I don't know, all the other kind of organized, how do you say, organized sections of society is represented in the parliament. So if imagine that kind of pluralism in a parliament, işte, and then how will they make laws? Mesela if you say, okay, I want to have a ban on alcohol, tamam, or yeah, ban on alcohol is a good example. Mesela if you say in that kind of context, I want to ban alcohol because God said so, because it's written in Quran, or it's Muslim law, people would say, oh, I don't believe in your gods. So how will you be able to pass this law? So these guys, Rawls and Habermas, and later I brought Robert Oddy here. You should have secular reasoning in the deliberative body. So and they should give reasons so that everyone can accept. Did you understand? Yeah, and this is extremely important. If you cannot just say, oh, I don't believe in your God, so I don't accept your proposal. So you should give reasons so that they can be accessible to everyone. Even the non-religious people can accept. Tamam mı? So yeah, this is, I gave the same example here. Justify alcohol ban with health safety issue, for instance. He says, okay, in order to have this kind of society, this kind of pluralism, you should not just allow people to give secular reasons, but they should also be motivated by secular motivations. So they cannot be hypocritical. This is what Robert Oddy says. Yani when they give reasons that accessible to everyone, they should also believe in them. Yani you cannot be hypocritical in a truly democratic society. This makes kind of high bar in the moral and ethical, how do you say, aspect of secularism. This is yani Robert Oddy come up with these two ideas. Now I will start criticizing these ideas. Go ahead, hocam.
Oke, di sini beliau mengambil pendapat dari salah satu penulis di sini di audio Robert ya di situ atau sama dengan Habermas di situ sebetulnya yang dicari adalah suara siapa atau suara model apa yang sebetulnya diperbolehkan secara publik di situ. Artinya apa di sini? Bagaimana kita memastikan bahwa di sana ada pluralitas, bahwa di sana boleh suara saja itu bisa di situ. Sehingga Robert Audi misalnya ketika dia bicara mengenai sekularisme, dia bilang ada kondisi yang harus dipenuhi ketika kita berbicara mengenai pluralisme yang demokratis. Ya, kenapa begitu? Karena tujuannya adalah memastikan bahwa pluralitas yang ada di sana itu memang dihargai. Di dalam masyarakat demokratis, di situ harus ada hargaan terhadap pluralitas. Ada sudut pandang yang berbeda-beda, ada keanekaragaman sudut pandang yang itu harus dihargai, harus dihormati, sehingga diperbolehkan muncul di sana. Nah, tadi dua kondisinya yaitu apa? Yang pertama adalah secular reasoning tadi. Jadi ketika kita berbicara mengenai demokrasi, yang jelas di situ hukum misalnya dia harus apa? Ketika kita harus secara umum itu bisa diakses oleh semua orang, bukan hanya alasan agama saja. Jadi misalnya dia kasih contoh begini, negara melarang misalnya alkohol itu dilarang di situ. Nah, itu harus dikemukakan alasan-alasannya secara ada secular reasoning ya. Jadi bukan hanya alasan aku mau karena ini menurut kitab suci nggak boleh haram. Tidak bisa hanya seperti itu. Tetapi misalnya di situ itu untuk health safety misalnya itu untuk demi kesehatan dan lain sebagainya. Jadi harus ada alasan-alasan yang itu sifatnya rasional dan sekuler, tidak hanya berdasar pada teks-teks agama. Itu yang secular reasoning. Yang kedua, yang tadi kondisi yang kedua untuk democratic pluralism adalah ada secular motivation. Motivasinya juga begitu di situ. Jadi ketika kita mau mendukung satu keputusan tertentu di situ harus ada motif yang bukan motif agama saja. Jadi misalnya di sini Anda nggak boleh merokok misalnya, karena oleh agama itu nggak boleh haram. Tidak bisa begitu di dalam democratic pluralism kata dia. Yang ada adalah Anda dilarang merokok hanya karena ini berkaitan dengan public health, kesehatan secara umum di situ. Jadi bukan ini haram nih secara agama. Tidak. Karena itu kan hanya berlaku untuk orang Islam. Jadi kan tidak dalam arti di sini pluralitas, diverse worldview, tidak dari sudut pandang orang banyak. Oke, Abe.
Tamam. Okay. Okay. But even if you follow these ideals, a major problem remains. One that arises from within the very framework of democratic ideals themselves. That is, its democratic deficit. Şimdi, okay, liberal democracies claim to be responsive to their citizens. So how can they remain silent toward their religious members? How can religious reasons be excluded? Yani idea is this. Şimdi, if the people come with demands of, how do you say, their religious demands they want to raise, and how will you stay blind to these demands if you claim to be responsive to all citizens? This is one of the major problems, let's say, in these ideals. Yani from far, when you look at them logically, rationally, they make sense. But when it comes to, how do you say, real responsiveness of the regimes, what will you do with people who wants to lead religious lives, tamam mı? Or who insist on giving religious reasons, tamam mı? When they want to pursue certain laws, tamam mı? This is one of the important considerations, or one of the major critiques of these ideals against Robert Oddie or against Habermas, against Rawls. Hocam, go ahead.
Okay, I think this is interesting. Jadi walaupun tadi yang kita jelaskan tadi itu ideal, itu ideal sekali, bagus sekali, tetapi saya kira masih ada problem besar di situ. Masih ada problem besar di situ, yaitu apa? Problem democratic deficit. Apa di situ? Karena kalau di dalam sistem demokrasi liberal itu kan mereka mengklaim bahwa mereka bertanggung jawab terhadap semua penduduknya, semua orang di situ. Maka pertanyaannya, kalau bertanggung jawab untuk semuanya, mengapa mereka tetap diam terhadap orang-orang yang beragama? Orang beragama kan juga seharusnya masuk dalamnya. Nah, itu persoalannya di situ. How can this reason be excluded? Kalau begitu, kalau Anda tadi bertanggung jawab responsible untuk the citizen, tapi kenapa alasan keagamaan justru itu dikeluarkan? Yang penting adalah tadi kan tekannya alasan-alasan yang sekuler rasional. Nah, saya kira problemnya yang ada di situ ya, walaupun mungkin itu ideal, tetapi masih ada problem besar yang sebetulnya juga tidak demokratik juga. Okay, Abe.
Yeah. Besides this philosophical contradiction, there were also some contextual global trends at the time in 1990s. The term post-secular was very important. So there were global resurgence of religion after 1990s. Tamam mı? Especially collapse of Soviet Russia and United States becoming a hegemon, and Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, thing of Iranian Revolution, all these things somehow made religions back significant in society. So the scholars like Habermas, all the scholars, mesela Berger, they started to rethink their modernization, political modernization theories. And before, especially 1960s, there was this belief in like the world will secularize, there will be like democracy, liberal democracy will spread all over the world, but it didn't happen, especially after 1990s. Yes, hocam.
Oke, sehingga karena tadi ada masalah ya, tadi masih ada problem besar di situ, maka sebetulnya tahun 1990-an itu sebetulnya menjadi semacam menandai satu, di sini bahasanya global resurgence of religion, jadi kebangkitan agama secara global, menandai global kebangkitan agama di situ, yang itu sangat penting di situ, sehingga seringkali kebangkitan agama secara global itu seringkali dijelaskan sebagai post secular turn, itu. Jadi tadi idealnya itu kan sekuler, tapi ternyata masih ada problem, sehingga tahun berikutnya 1990s di situ mulai ada yang disebut, yang dikenal dengan secular turn di situ. Artinya apa di situ? Mengembalikan agama, peran agama kembali di situ kepada masyarakat. Give religion back to society. Bagaimana mengembalikan agama, dikembalikan lagi kepada masyarakat, karena ternyata tidak bisa mengabaikan itu, dan definisi tadi demokratik dia bertanggung jawab untuk semua umat, ternyata kan ada yang dieliminasi, ada yang ditinggalkan dan lain sebagainya. Saya kira itu sehingga muncul post secular turn. Oke, Abe.
So one of the major critiques come from Jose Casanova. By the way, when we were in Washington, D.C., we were living in the same apartment building, actually. This guy with this guy. In 1994, he wrote the book Religions in the Modern World. And he said, okay, all these ideals you share, he's criticizing the theories of secularism. And he was saying, actually, you are prescribing certain, let's say, ideals, but when we look at even Western societies, this is not the case. Yani, can we really say that they are equidistant to all religions? Are they really secular? So, okay, in the secularism hypothesis, they claim, the social theorists claim that religion will decline in general, and there will be state and religion will be separated, and religion will remain only in the private lives of the individuals. But when we look at the real sociological cases, we looked at 5 different countries, by the way, in the book. This is not the case. For instance, in US, they say, in God we trust. So how can you say that there is no, there is secular reason, let's say, as Robert Oddy is saying, or how do you say, all the political modernization theorists predicted to be. So the real sociological appearance of these regimes are not secular at all. But in actual practice, they are following very religious, how do you say, norms in their institutions. For instance, in Germany, there are Catholic schools. So what will you do with all these religious authorities being present in many so-called secular states? This is what Jose Casanova said in 1994. Go ahead, hocam.
Oke, saya kira kritik yang menarik adalah dari Jose Casanova dalam bukunya Religion in the Modern World. Di situ dia mengkritisi. Jadi kalau tadi saya kira kelemahan-kelemahannya, ada problem besar yang tadi sudah dikemukakan, democratic deficit tadi, sehingga dia bertanya apakah sebetulnya what secularism practice, how is it prescribed? Jadi apakah memang betul-betul sekularisme itu diaplikasikan seperti adanya, seperti konsep yang tadi dipromosikan di situ, gitu? Atau justru misalnya kita bicara agama itu sudah decline di situ misalnya, atau itu harus ada separation atau pemisahan agama dari negara atau privatisasi di situ. Apa begitu? Karena apa kenyataannya di Amerika saja yang dibilang itu sekuler, misalnya Anda tahu duit itu, di Amerika itu kan tulisannya in God we trust. Bagaimana alasan rasionalnya di situ kan? Itu saya kira kritik-kritik dari Jose Casanova tadi di situ ya. Lalu ada banyak yang lain misalnya Catholic School dan lain-lain. Oke, Abe.
So a second very important revision came from Habermas, and he was staunch supporter of secularism, let's say his secular reason, let's say, in public sphere, and he was thinking that we should not allow any religious voices in public deliberations. In 2006, he had to make a huge turn in his position. He wrote this article called Religion in the Public Sphere, and what he said is, this is actually following this democratic deficit problem. This is one of the big troubles of liberal democracies. How can we curb the religious voices from the public sphere? So he said, like, this is important. His new position, he says, in the public sphere, citizens can use religious or comprehensive doctrine-based reasoning, but when it comes to parliament lawmaking, however, he said, there must be a translation requirement. And for instance, you're a Catholic MP, member of parliament, you need to translate your religious reasons into universal acceptable reasons in the parliamentary floor discussions, debates. So this is important. And what he says is, people on the street can protest, they can voice their religious positions, but when it comes to deliberations in the parliament, they should be translating. This is parliament threshold, he said. They should be translating their reasons into universal reason. So this is an important turn in Habermas, but actually it's not a turn. And if you think of the parliamentary threshold clause in Habermas's thing, but at least he is now recognizing religious reasons in the public sphere. You cannot even think without a public sphere without religious reasons. Go ahead, Hocam. You can.
Oke, ini menarik saya kira dari Habermas. Ini kan sangat kenal ya, Jurgen Habermas itu. Dia menulis dalam Religion in Public Sphere. Jadi tadi kan kritiknya atau tadi persoalannya yang tadi masih menjadi problem besar adalah democratic deficit. Sehingga ada tadi namanya post secular turn ya di sini. Nah, Habermas sendiri yang tadinya juga pendukung secularism itu, dia revise his earlier secularist stance. Jadi justru untuk menanggapi persoalan democratic deficit tadi, yang tadinya dia mendukung sekularisme, dia di sini merevisi sudut pandangnya itu, sehingga posisi barunya dia bilang begini. Di dalam public sphere di situ, jadi di lingkup publik di situ, penduduk can use religious atau comprehensive doctrine based reasoning. Jadi orang-orang komunitas di situ di lingkungan publik itu boleh mereka menggunakan agama atau alasan-alasan yang komprehensif yang berdasarkan kepada doktrin-doktrin agama. Jadi tidak harus alasan sekuler. Tadi kan alasan yang pertama kan tadi alasannya harus alasan sekuler, tidak boleh based on text misalnya. Nah, justru Habermas di sini merevisi pandangannya itu, dia bilang boleh di dalam public sphere itu citizen, penduduk boleh menggunakan agama atau doktrin-doktrin yang alasan-alasan yang berdasarkan alasan-alasan agama di situ. Nah, cuma di dalam parlemen yang mereka yang membuat hukum itu, there must be a translation. Jadi di situ harus ada terjemahan dari perspektif-perspektif agama itu tadi, pandangan-pandangan agama. Artinya apa di situ ya? Anggota parlemen harus menerjemahkan alasan-alasan keagamaan yang tadi diberikan oleh masyarakat itu untuk apa? Supaya menjadi alasan yang itu bisa diterima oleh semua, bukan oleh umat beragama saja. Itu prinsipnya. Lalu di situ debat-debat di dalam parlemen itu juga harus mendasarkan argumen-argumen di mana semua semua orang, siapapun dia, kepercayaannya apapun dia, itu bisa menerima yang diperdebatkan itu. Jadi itu saya kira tugasnya parlemen juga tidak mudah, ya, bagaimana mentranslate, bagaimana menerjemahkan yang itu suara-suara agama, tetapi bisa menjadi pemahaman yang bisa dipahami oleh orang-orang secara umum. Jadi misalnya di sini, if Allah is justified, jadi ketika ada satu hukum yang itu dijustifikasi hanya mata-mata dengan iman saja kepada Tuhan, maka itu tidak akan dihitung sebagai valid public reason for non-believers. Jadi itu tidak akan bisa dipakai sebagai alasan yang valid untuk orang-orang yang beriman. Toh, maka tadi alasan-alasan agama harus ditranslate, harus diterjemahkan ke dalam alasan-alasan yang itu bisa diterima di dalam bahasa umum. Itu saya kira, itu the art of hermeneutic, I think, right, Abe?
Yeah, sorry, again, ask it again.
No, I mean for the legislative, di situ member of parliament, they have to understand about hermeneutic, so they can translate, they can interpret the religious reason into accessible atau universal accessible reason, right?
Exactly, okay. Exactly. This Habermas insists on, in the parliament level, they should resort to universal reasons and reasons that can be acceptable to everyone. And you cannot come up with reasons that is from your specific comprehensive doctrine, and the other person does not accept. You should translate those into. Anyway, let's talk about. By the way, these are different suggestions to the problem. This problem is evident. How can you let the religious voices in the public sphere, in the parliament? So these scholars are coming up with different suggestions. So the other suggestions come from Alfred Stepan and Ahmet Kuru. This is another important, and there are two books actually. One is by Kuru and Stepan together, Democracy, Islam and Secularism in Turkey, Columbia University Press, and the other one earlier actually is Alfred Stepan, Religion, Democracy and the Twin Toleration. But let me say just 2 words about twin tolerations. This is his suggestion to solve this problem. There should be like toleration in 2 ways. When there are these religious institutions, at the same time, secular state, how they can coexist. This is the problem. So the guy says, Stepan says, there should be toleration of religious citizens and institutions by the democratic state. Yani, democratic state should recognize their religious citizens. They can exist, but at the same time, this is what he says, religious citizens or institutions, toleration of the democratic state by the religious actors. They should also tolerate the liberal democracy. Did you understand? Only with this twin toleration, he thinks they can coexist. Otherwise, and if they work to demise the other's existence, then all the regime is in trouble. This is what he said. Go ahead, Hocam, you can translate this one.
Okay, pertanyaannya sekarang adalah begini. Sekularisme dan demokrasi bisa nggak mereka ada bersama-sama, koeksis? Nah di sini ada sudut pandang beberapa anjuran supaya mereka bisa koeksis. Itu ada tulisan dari Alfred Stepan dan juga Ahmed Kuru di situ. Itu kalau ada adalah di situ kalau di sana ada toleransi kembar, twin toleration, ya. Ini bisa disebut aktif atau pasif sekularisme. Apa itu toleransi kembar? Di sini yang pertama adalah toleration of religious institution by democratic state. Jadi negara demokrasi itu dia mentoleransi penduduk-penduduk agama atau institusi keagamaan. Itu yang toleransi yang pertama. Karena ini kan toleransi kembar. Lalu yang kedua, kembarannya adalah toleration of democratic state by religious actor. Jadi di situ memang ada negara demokrasi dan itu ditoleransi oleh para aktor-aktor agama. Artinya apa di situ? Kalau ada 2 toleransi ini, maka itu baru bisa dikatakan bahwa sekularisme dan demokrasi itu ada bersama-sama, hidup bersama-sama di situ. Asal tadi negara mentoleransi pendapat-pendapat masyarakat agama itu di satu sisi, tapi di sisi yang lain justru pemerintah yang ada itu ditoleransi oleh aktor-aktor agama. Oke, Abe.
Yeah. Okay. Now this is you will. I already talked about this separation, elimination, and control account. It will resemble to that one, but in 2009, işte Ahmet Kuru and later together with Stepan, they also wrote something. They talked about this active versus passive secularism. And they think there are two kinds of secularism. One is active secularism, the other one is passive secularism. So active secularism means the state intervenes in religion or shape or manage it in public life, often to promote certain civic or national identity. Yani the case of Turkey, for instance, can be seen as active secularism. Yani the state directly takes role in religious the regulation of religious sphere. The passive secularism means, they think, the state maintains a principled distance from the religion but permits its public visibility. Yani this is a Anglo-Saxon type thing. Yani state does not take any action against the state, against the religion. It just permits it to exist. So this is called passive secularism. Okay, Ahmet Kuru and Stepan favors the active secularism can work quite peacefully if the society is secular. Yani if in a society religiosity is low, yani most of the society is not that religious, you can tolerate, let's say, a kind of active secularist policies as we see in France. Now, French society is already very non-religious in themselves. But when the society is religious, according to Kure and Stepan, you cannot have active secularism, but you should have passive secularism. Yani more Anglo-Saxon type separation doctrine should be in place. Meaning, for instance, in the United States, this is an important thing. The United States is a very religious society. So if they have active secularism, it would create a lot of tensions in society. So United States wisely, according to Stepan and Kuru, adopted a very passive understanding of secularism. But Turkey made a big mistake for Kuru and Alfred Stefan. Turkey is a very religious society. Despite this religious society, Turkish state adopted an active secularism policy, and this issue has always created a lot of tension in the society. So they suggest Turkey should make transition from active to passive secularism. Yani they should disestablish the Directorate of Religious Affairs. They should not, mesela, if you look at Turkish state secularism, they are promoting very strict secular policies. They should abandon these policies, and they should act as if it's like American or in English states. Go ahead, Hocam. You can. This is okay. Another suggestion to diminish this.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. Okay, Abe, after I translate this, could you please stop and let students to ask first? So I think because they already feel something that really need to ask you. I think. Oke. Jadi tadi kembali ke pembicaraan tadi, apakah bisa sekularisme dan demokrasi itu sama-sama ada di situ? Tadi kan ada yang disebut dengan aktif sekularisme. Ya, apa itu aktif sekularisme itu? Aktif sekularisme itu yaitu ketika negara itu intervene. Jadi negara itu ikut terlibat, intervensi di dalam agama, atau bahkan di situ untuk membentuk agama atau merencanakan bagaimana agama di public life. Ya, memanage agama ini loh, seharusnya agama itu begini, harusnya begini di situ. Nah, itu biasanya mereka lakukan itu untuk apa? Untuk national identity atau untuk civic atau national identity. Nah, contoh aktif sekularisme itu, ini kan tadi ada intervensi negara terhadap agama, itu contohnya adalah Turki yang masa Kemal Atatürk dulu, dan juga Prancis. Prancis itu kan terkenal dengan laicite-nya itu sekularisme itu. Ya. Nah, artinya apa? Di dalam aktif sekularisme, negara sebetulnya tidak netral di situ terhadap negara tidak netral terhadap agama, tetapi apa? Secara aktif itu mereka mencoba untuk membatasi agama, membatasi perannya untuk public institution. Jadi agama boleh ada tapi itu dibatasi oleh negara, itu aktif secularism. Nah, yang pasif secularism itu agama itu negara mengambil jarak di situ ya. Prinsip distance from religion. Jadi boleh agama ada di sana, silakan saja. Nah, negara ini mengambil jarak. Jadi memang betul-betul ini yang mungkin selama ini yang Anda pahami sekularisme itu ya. Jadi negara nggak intervensi dengan agama. Nah, itu contohnya misalnya Amerika di situ atau India di situ. Jadi sekularisme yang model begini fokusnya adalah bagaimana protecting religious pluralism, bagaimana melindungi pluralitas agama tanpa intervensi dari negara. Jadi agama boleh ada di situ, negara hanya mengambil jarak, lihat dari jauh lah bahasanya di situ. Ya, sehingga ada anjuran di situ, kalau mau melakukan sekularisme atau mempraktekkan sekularisme demokrasi di situ, maka kalau di sana ada konteksnya itu atau komunitasnya itu, populasinya itu banyak masyarakat agama, banyak orang beragama di situ, maka mungkin kita lebih baik mempraktekkan pasif sekularisme. Nah, aktif sekularisme itu mungkin bisa terjadi hanya di masyarakat yang sekuler, di mana keberagaman orang itu ya begitu rendah. Ya, tapi kalau umat beragama semua, ya mungkin pasif sekularisme, dia cuma dari jauh saja. Saya kira begitu. Oke, Abe, ada yang mau bertanya atau you will ask, Abe?
Yeah, it is actually I am fine. I'm finished. You can ask questions, dear friends.
Oh, that's good. Oke, Abe. Sekarang ada yang mau bertanya? Silakan. There is someone.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, Abe. I will translate to you the question. Yeah.
Okay, I can. We can get the questions or the comments. Go ahead.
Okay. Boleh komen, boleh question. Bagaimana pertanyaannya? Saya jelaskan bagaimana Bapak on there. Ini sebagai bentuk pelemahan terhadap prinsip-prinsip kemalisme atau sebagai evolusi wajar dalam demokrasi Turki modern. Kejadiannya Maret kemarin 2025 ada penangkapan wali kota Istanbul yaitu Ekrem İmamoğlu. Beliau adalah salah satu titik PHP dan terpilihnya beliau adalah bukan telat bagi Erdogan. Ternyata ditangkap atas tuduhan korupsi. Oh, oke. Ternyata respon masyarakat dan lain sebagainya itu menunjukkan bahwasanya itu pelemahan terhadap orang-orang oposisi pemerintah dan kemalisme yang ada di Turki. Terus yang saya lihat coraknya sama hampir dengan demokrasi di Indonesia. Erdogan ini kan parlamentarian seperti Prabowo. Waktu itu demokrasi dilarang, waktu kejadian Maret itu demokrasi dilarang, dan akses warga Turki di semua sosial media dibatasi, dan juga human rights sampai mencatatkan bahwa Erdogan melakukan penekanan kepada media dan lain sebagainya. Itu bagaimana Bapak dosen begini sebagai apakah melihat ini sebagai bentuk pelemahan terhadap prinsip-prinsip kemanusiaan atau sebagai evolusi wajar dalam demokrasi kultur modernnya seperti Oke, Abe. Here is the question from our student, from Berefi. Yeah, actually, he would like to know the cases that happen in your country. So I think that does happen. For example, the imprisonment of a certain leaders in Istanbul. That happened by Erdogan. Yeah, you know that. What is his name? I forget. That's the first one.
Ekrem İmamoğlu. Ekrem İmamoğlu,
Yeah.
the mayor of Istanbul's detained.
Yeah, mayor, and he's the opposition to Erdogan, right? To Erdogan party, right? Yeah. So that's the first case, and the second case is he said that Westerners see your president Erdogan as an authoritarian president. Because according to this student, he prohibited a democratic environment. He prohibited democracy actually. So, for example, he limit the access to social media, right? So, for example, like international human rights institution also said that what Erdogan was doing actually is he take pressure to the media. So what he's doing is actually pressuring the media because he prohibit the access to social media. So what do you think about these two cases? Is it a kind like a pressure to Kemalism, or a kind like evolution? Yeah, it's a usual evolution of that thinking or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, thank you very much. These are very sensitive issues. you might imagine.
Yeah.
I love talking about these things. And first of all, I should say, after 1995, 1994 in Turkey, Refah Partisi at the time, by Erbakan, they got like some kind of like 21% of the vote in Turkey in general elections. And Erdogan was a mayor at the time, and he got the majority of Istanbul, and he got mayor of Istanbul in 1994. But you see, right when I was talking about the increasing of religion in general in public sphere, in Turkey we have rise of Islamism in political sphere. So my professor Sherif Mardin was saying, actually it shows how Turkish democracy is robust. So it somehow contained Islamic voices within electoral system, and within without any civil war, without any tension in the public sphere, or without any blood, to tell it in the direct way, Islamists were able to come to power in 2002. Erdogan opened, they established their party, AK Party, and they were able to garner 34% of the votes in first election. They were also shocked, and they got the majority seats in the parliament, and they start ruling the country. And then it's been more than 20 years AKP is in power, but they come through democratic means. And Sherif Mardin used to say it shows how Turkish although we have not that good records, we have lots of coup d'etats in Turkish history. 3 coup d'etats we are talking about. I didn't talk about this more recent history. I just talked about early Republican period in terms of secularism efforts. But despite all these coup d'etats, everything, somehow Islamists were able to come to power by democratic votes. Actually, if you look at the majority of the society, and you can take it as if it is a containment of very important voice in Turkish society, which was suppressed during the one-party rule of Atatürk and afterwards. But the recent democratic standards, I agree with my friend that Erdogan is curbing freedoms now in Turkey. Especially some of the political party leaders are now in prison. Actually, before the Ekrem İmamoğlu, the Kurdish party leader, just because of its political dissent, let's say, or political voice, he was now he's been for many years, he's in prison now. And these things are not, and we are not very happy with these kind of developments in the Turkish political recent sphere. And we are not doing very good actually in democratic standards, as Freedom House Index as one of, and I think he's mentioning Freedom House Index. Turkish democracy is not thriving, to tell you the truth, but still there is a peace in the society, and somehow some people say this Turkish society is divided. There's a huge fissure, cleavage in the Turkish society in terms of like secular versus religious people. So somehow the regime is able to contain this huge cleavage within the society, and this is a success actually, and also it's a successful Erdogan's era. Because a lot of people were afraid that Erdogan's political moves will curb freedoms of the seculars, but it didn't happen. Some freedoms were curbed, as the Kurdish party leader is in prison, but most of the freedoms are still intact in Turkish democracy. And I agree. And the last, detainment of Ekrem İmamoğlu is not also very just. But there are very technical details. I'm not, I'm not expert on these technical details. I'm just following it through the media. Ekrem İmamoğlu was one of the biggest, let's say, candidates opposing Erdogan in the coming presidential elections, and now he's almost eliminated from the elections. So this is not a good thing, of course, for the Turkish democracy. But Erdogan came with the same kind of same kind of injustice. They put Erdogan into the secular Kemalists in 2004 to 2019. Sorry, 96. They put Erdogan into prison when he was a mayor, and then because of that injustice, he got a lot of votes after 2002. The same might happen for the CHP leader now. So Turkish democracy somehow can contain all these unwanted let's say developments. We will see, and we are now watching it all together. Any questions? Any comments?
Okay, so is it a kind like what Erdogan was doing is a like of retaliation, maybe late retaliation from what the other people are doing for him?
Yeah, you can see it that way too.
Okay.
It's very harsh. And yet parties are very harsh against each other. Turkish democracy, and people are not that. And this always happened in Turkish democracy before. In 19 before 1980 coup, again the political parties were were very harsh against each other, and then coup d'etat happened. So civil, and this has been a threat for civil institutions, civil political parties, and there was coup d'etats. Now very similar trends are happening. Like people cannot tolerate each other, the different political parties, and they can talk very negatively against each other. But hopefully, and we hope that the Turkish democracy will remain its civil, let's say, in its civil borders, and it will continue as a good democracy. We will see. Any questions? Any more comments about secularism? Actually,
okay. Let me say something to the student. Okay, ya saya kira mungkin bahasa mudahnya itu yang dilakukan oleh Erdogan itu semacam balas dendam. Jadi dulu 2019 waktu Erdogan masih menjadi mayor, itu dia juga di imprison, dia juga di penjara oleh orang-orang dari Kemalism ya, yang sekarang itu kan dari partainya Kemalism sebetulnya. Nah, sebetulnya sama. Jadi dan memang demokrasi yang ada di Turki itu modelnya seperti itu. Jadi maka bahasanya siapa Onder ini, dia bilang rezim itu di situ contain dua kelompok. Jadi memang rezim yang ada itu kan ada dua kelompok yang kelompok partai yang berbeda ya. Jadi yang tadi dipenjarakan oleh Erdogan itu kan sebetulnya musuh besar calon nanti pemilihan presiden yang akan datang. Tapi kan dia dieliminasi di situ kan akhirnya oleh Erdogan. Nah, itu saya kira sebetulnya di Turki juga terjadi banyak ya protes-protes semacam itu sering terjadi di situ ya, atau demonstrasi-demonstrasi yang semacam itu juga sering terjadi. Jadi memang bahasa dia tadi rezim atau demokrasi yang ada di Turki itu ya modelnya dua itu contain atau berisi dua hal itu ya. Jadi yang satu misalnya dulu pernah di sini begitu sekarang jadi itu kan persaingan politik yang terjadi ya dengan cara mengeliminasi dia, sudah dia kan nggak bisa lagi menjadi calon dan musuhnya akan hilang. Karena dulu dia juga diperlakukan sama Erdogan ketika 2019 katanya itu. Oke. Ada pertanyaan yang lain? Gimana? Siapa ini namanya? Saya lupa. Akunda. Oke. Another question.
Yes, please.
Oke.
Yang menjadi kritik saya itu pada definisi sekularisme itu menjadi reshaping public expression. Ambil contoh tadi kan ada kasus bagaimana di Turki itu kelompok ada peci, pakaian-pakaian yang keluar sampai digunakan. Tapi menurut saya itu bukan pakaian untuk mencerminkan daya dari masyarakat. Kita ambil contoh di Indonesia itu ada peci hitam, itu kan bukan produk agama, tapi itu adalah produk budaya dari Indonesia. Karena di mana lagi dan menurut saya kan sebetulnya untuk penghapusan seperti itu kan ya jauh dari pengertian keluar, maksudnya apakah masuk ke dalam
Oke. Sebelum saya pertanyakan ke dia ya, jadi bentuk songkok yang ada di Turki, yang itu simbol keagamaan itu berbeda dengan yang kayak kita. Kalau kupluk itu, kita kan mungkin bukan kupluk yang kayak Anda tadi songkok hitam itu songkok hitam kalau di Indonesia itu disebut sebagai kalau di luar itu di Singapura atau dikenal dengan Soekarno's hat. Itu kopiahnya Soekarno. Kan nggak ada hubungannya dengan agama. Gitu? Jadi mungkin kalau ini mungkin bukan songkok, bukan kopiah ya, yang itu dilarang. Gitu. Karena kalau di sana torbus itu memang khusus itu adalah topi untuk orang beragama. Beda dengan topi biasa. Maka tadi yang dicontohkan oleh AB ini kan topi umum itu, topi sekuler itu. Ya, karena yang dipakai misalnya kalau di sini ya saya kan tadi contoh saja, Anda kan karena biasa beribadah itu sehingga seolah-olah sarung itu kan simbol orang NU, orang entah itu budaya, entah itu agama, gitu. Tapi memang kalau di sana memang itu ya. Jadi misalnya yang bau agama, jadi Anda misalnya pakai torbus itu kan simbol agama. Di sana Anda nggak boleh masuk ke pegawai sebagai pegawai pemerintah masuk ke situ, nggak boleh, dilarang gitu. Jadi hal-hal maksudnya kan di situ untuk membatasi ekspresi keagamaan secara publik. Anda boleh beragama tapi nggak usah dipublikkan gitu ya. Nah, itu kan beda. Sekarang kan Anda beragama kan malah mau dipublikkan. Bagi zakat aja dikasih di shooting di situ toh. Jumat berkah di video. Itu kan publik. Itu kan maunya agama diketahui orang banyak. Dan di Turki itu dibatasi. Gitu ya. Oke, Abe. His question is that he thanks to you about your presentation. He said he like your PPT. So it's well written. for your PPT. He's asked. His question is like this about the definition of secularism. But I told him that it is different because actually what secularism, what Turkey was doing is a, like, you know, you are prohibiting using something that is considered or related to religion in public affairs, right? So that's the example of secularism. But according to him, it is not what is the meaning of secularism, because that expression maybe also is not religious expression. So for example, like hat, religious hat, maybe this is not religious hat, but it may be also just cultural hat, not religious but cultural. Okay. So what do you think about that?
As I said, there is no just one definition of secularism. That's why I talked about like different different practice of secularism. Mesela even elimination, mesela according to Nikki Keddie, even elimination or disestablishment of religion altogether from the society is a kind of secularism. But of course, when you say religion, it is monotheistic, well-known religions, Christianity, Islam, or what is the majority religion in the society is being disestablished. So this is one version of secularism. It doesn't mean that it is secularism. It is one version. It is practiced in certain contexts like Albania, Russia, and some communist countries. This is secularism. And if you think of it that way, yani secularism, but the concept is very, how do you say, the way it's practiced in history, it meant many other things. As I said, the separation account said, the Anglo-Saxon type, in Ahmet Kuru's the terminology, it is passive secularism, said you don't do anything to religion. This is also secularism. And a state that will not make any law about religion. This is the way United States defines secularism. They will not make any law about religion. This is the constitutional article in United States. This is also secularism, and the way secularism appears in United States, they don't interfere with the religious affairs. But as I said, the control account is yet another manifestation, historical manifestation, that actually state makes law and it interferes and it allows only one type of religion in certain contexts, as we see in Turkey. That mesela Atatürk himself ordered an ulema to make a tafsir that is suitable with the religious ideology of the state. This is another version of secularism. So these are all attempts to somehow define relation between religion and the state. But as you said, even a certain hat represent certain culture. You can always criticize that conception of secularism. When you are banning certain expression, you are allowing other kind of expression, isn't it? In line with certain comprehensive doctrine. It's exactly Jose Casanova's critique. He said, okay, let's look at the practices, how they actually enacted secularism. It's nothing to do with neutrality. Okay, the state should, presumably, ideally, they should stay equidistant to all religions, even they are following Anglo-Saxon type. Actually, they are not equidistant. Mesela they cannot, as in American banknote, we say, in God we trust. What about non-religious citizens? How can you assume that everyone trusts in God and one God? So even that sentence does not say that American state is a secular state. Did you understand? So this issue is very contested. There is no just one application practice of secularism, although some philosophers come up with some ideal definitions, but these ideal definitions are never we cannot trace any ideal definition as they exist in certain contexts. So the context defines this delicate relation between religion and the state, and we should do some sociological, if not political scientific research to understand this delicate relation between religion and state. Any questions, any comments?
Okay, let me say to him. Okay, ya, saya kira memang bukan definisi sekularisme, ya. Itu adalah praktisi. Jadi bahasa dia ada different practices of secularism. Ada praktek-praktek sekularisme yang itu berbeda-beda, beraneka ragam. Tadi di presentasi yang awal dia bilang ada 3 tipe sekularisme. Jadi misalnya yang pertama tadi disestablishment of religion, itu misalnya Albania, ya itu kan semua yang kaitannya dengan agama itu dihapus semua. Itu tipe 1. Tipe kedua separation, ya tadi pemisahan. Ya, jadi memang ini yang bahasa dia tadi pasif sekularisme itu kan ya pokoknya biarkan memang agama dibiarkan di sana, tapi pemerintah di sini tidak cawe-cawe. Itu. Lalu ada kontrol yang Turki ini yang aktif sekularisme. Ya, di situ memang dia mau mengontrol apa yang dari komunitas-komunitas keagamaan apa yang mereka lakukan di sana itu dikontrol oleh negara di situ. Jadi artinya apa? Sebetulnya yang dia ceritakan itu adalah bagaimana negara itu attempt, bagaimana mereka berusaha, gimana hubungan antara agama dengan negara di situ. Karena sebetulnya kalau mau memakai definisi sekularisme, mana yang disebut sebagai secular state? Kalau Amerika tadi disebut sebagai secular state, loh padahal sumpahnya atau di uangnya itu in God we trust. Bagaimana secular state kan? Jadi kalau memang definisi itu, tapi dia yang ingin tunjukkan ada praktek tadi, ada different practices ya mengenai sekularisme. Ada praktek-praktek yang beraneka ragam yang itu negara-negara yang mempraktekkan itu berbeda-beda. Itu? He will respond, Abe.
Sorry, he will?
He will respond what you just said.
Okay.
Dan kalau misalkan ekspresi agama itu bukan apa itu ada enggak batasan atau ketentuan menggunakan pakai sekuler itu kayak apa?
Oke.
Nah, soalnya kalau misalnya tidak ada batasan, misal kita nggak memberikan kriteria batasan sekuler, ada kita sebut ini berkomunikasi bersebut.
Okay. He's talking about westernization actually, not secularization. So, for example, like this, when we talk about what is that hat, yeah, religious hat misalnya. So, if it is not allowed during Kemalism that you cannot wear religious hat into a public, maybe public office or something like that. So his question is there any criteria or any limitation that you have to use like secular clothing if you go to a public sphere, for example, like that. So what is that secular? What is the characteristic or what is the criteria that this is secular clothes, but that one is a religious clothing or something like that? Okay, Abe.
Actually, but it's a great question. I agree totally with my friend. The typical bias about westernization is that they pretend these Western values are as if they are universal values. They are rational standards that conform with some universal rationality. But actually, if you look at them, they favor particular cultural predispositions. Mesela wearing a hat or listening. Mesela they establish an opera building. Let's say the opera institution in Turkey. So they think as exactly the westernization policies or the westernization direction in general. They think this is a universal thing. In the early Republican period, they think this secular, let's say cultural or cultural reformations in public sphere are deemed to be universally acceptable, practices. Listening to Western music, wearing işte this fötr şapka and the specific European hat. They think of those things as if they are devoid of any religious / cultural how do you say values. But actually, as you are right, yani it's a great, yani very good critique. Actually, they represent a certain comprehensive doctrine, another comprehensive doctrine. Yani you cannot simply pretend as if they are universal. But if you look at the practices today, dear friends, and it's sad but true, for instance, if you look at the parliaments, people wear tie. It's compulsory. We are going to Qatar next week. In the conference, they make this wearing of tie as a compulsory thing. Or you should wear this Arabic white thing. This is their how do you say clothing? But they pretend as if this garb, this clothing represent a kind of universal value. Tamam mı? Of course, it doesn't represent any universal value, and actually, it is a manifestation of certain value. So this is the biggest critique against secularism. So what is this position that make it equidistant to all culture? Are there any values? Are there any cultural position that makes like above all the other positions? So this is one of the how do you say biggest critique against universalist stance of secularism. And that's why after 1990s, there are a lot of critiques against this universalist understanding of secularism and liberal democracy. And they say, actually, you are already invested in certain kind of values and you promote them as if they are universal. Actually, they are not. And I agree with you. There is no way to distinguish religious and secular in that regard. And their secular can be very Christian at the same time. Yeah, you can always raise these issues, these critiques. Yes, Shafa, go ahead.
Oke, thank you Abe. Ya, saya kira dia setuju ya. Jadi memang sebetulnya apa ya, tidak ada istilahnya, tidak ada mana tadi katanya, tidak, no way. Jadi tidak ada jalan untuk beda sekuler atau ini religius. Tadi kan Anda mencari misalnya ada nggak batasan-batasan ya, sebetulnya itu, sehingga memang di situ dia setuju bahwa memang ada bias ya, either itu westernization atau secularization. Di situ kan jelas. Jadi misalnya begini, westernization atau sekularisme itu kan mereka apa ya, seolah-olah mereka pretend, seolah-olah mereka berprasangka bahwa ini adalah nilai universal. Itu persoalannya seperti itu kan apa ya istilahnya, biasnya kan di situ. Jadi misalnya Western atau tadi sekuler atau misalnya Turki bilang ini Anda ini agama ini nggak boleh, ini pakaian agama. Padahal di sana kan mana sebetulnya yang pakaian yang itu tidak berbau kultur di situ. Apa ada pakaian yang itu misalnya punya nilai-nilai universal yang semua orang itu setuju itu adalah universal. Dia kasih contoh misalnya ya, kalau di Turki itu, ini kan sebenarnya juga kritik dari Habermas ya, bahwa apa namanya universalism understanding of secularism itu kan memang susah di situ. Jadi misalnya Anda mau hadir di seminar, itu kan harus pakai dasi rapat di situ, itu ya, harus pakai baju tertentu. Itu adalah baju yang bernilai universal. Padahal kan belum tentu, boleh jadi itu adalah cultural value, itu adalah nilai-nilai budaya atau ini adalah bau-bau ini di situ. Itu saya kira dia juga setuju. Memang ada bias di situ ya. Itu saya kira persoalannya, dan itu yang juga dikritik Habermas ya. Memang tidak ada universal understanding mengenai itu, mengenai secularism atau mengenai westernisasi. Oke. Thank you. Masih ada lagi?
Shafa, yeah, I need to leave now at 11:30. I forgot. I have other thing that I need to join at 11:30. I didn't think that this will last this long. And if they have any other questions, they can write, and we should talk, Shafa, soon. Tamam, I should attend the other one now. Tamam.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Abe. Yeah, I think no one is asking again, so I think we will close right now. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abe, for your time to give a lot of information and also a lot of knowledge to our students, right? So it will enrich the knowledge of our students. I think and thank you again, and we wait for your coming to Indonesia. And I already talked to rector that you will come, so maybe he also will prepare something if you need to be the lecturer here. We are ready also to do that. So welcome, Abe, and again thank you so much, and say hello to Astrid and also to your son. Okay,
Great. No, I will.
Abe, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oke, terima kasih semuanya. Saya kira kita sudah cukup sampai di sini. And okay, Abe, thank you so much, and stay healthy, keep healthy, stay safe. Okay, Abe, and thank you again. Let's give an applause to our professor from Turkey.
Thank you very much. See you.
Thank you, Abe.
Thank you.
Terima kasih ya. Saya kira dia juga harus
siapa itu?
Jangan dia masih jam 9 pagi.